Okay, this is Kenneth Boozer, Irving Fireman for how many years?
38 and a half.
In Irving, Texas.
All in Irving, Texas.
Okay, Kenneth, where did you grow up?
Grew up right here in Irving. Came home from St. Paul Hospital to Cochran Street and lived there till I went to the Marine Corps. Came home from the Marine Corps, went back to Cochran till I bought my first house a few months later. So lived in Cochran all my life, except for when I was in the Corps.
How long were you in the Corps?
Just 3 years.
3 years?
Yeah.
What was your job in the Marine Corps?
I was a cryptographic analyst and communicator.
What is that?
I dealt with top secret stuff that we intercepted from the Russians and try to analyze it and of course communicate messages back and forth and all, but things that we intercepted and we'd try to analyze and try to decode it. So.
Where did you go to high school?
Went to MacArthur. Grew up, started off in A.S. Johnston, about my fourth grade year. I moved to Brandenburg because they built Brandenburg. But little known fact, Brandenburg wasn't totally finished yet, and so they had for the first half of the year, we went to Plymouth Park Methodist Church, had classrooms there, and the same thing for fifth grade. Apparently they finished the fourth grade classrooms, you know, but then. And so fifth grade started off there too, and then sixth grade was a whole year. But now it's a completely different building. Apparently it had structural problems, and they redid it. Then went to Travis after that, and then MacArthur. What
activities were you involved with at MacArthur High School?
At MacArthur, I was involved in journalism and wrestling. I started off in band. And then Mr. Colvin came to me in the middle of my sophomore year and said, you know, you can either wrestle or play in the band. If you're going to wrestle, then we're going to move you down to the B band. And I was in the symphonic band. And I said, well, let's see. The wrestling coach is not making me make a choice like that. And he said, well, you might hurt your lips and then wouldn't be able to play. And I said, well, I hadn't hurt my lips yet and everything, but since the wrestling coach didn't, then I'll just stay wrestling and not do band at all. Because I played band at my church, and my church had did a lot of youth stuff at my church, and most of my activities were at church. But I did wrestle and was in journalism and band freshman and sophomore year.
Were you on the newspaper or yearbook?
I was on the yearbook, but we worked all together and everything as one big journalism department.
So you were back there with Johnny Hurd.
Oh yeah,
Karen Tate.
Hurd's Hurd.
How were you ranked in school?
Oh, I have no clue. I made good grades and stuff that I cared about in high school. In college, I made straight A's, but. I cared about it because it was time that I spent away from my family, and I used it as a judge of, how I was utilizing that time that I spent it away from my family. But in high school, if I liked something, then I did well in it. If I didn't, I made B's, okay? But, the stuff I liked, I made A's in. So it just depends on how much effort I put into it. And I didn't put as much effort into some things as I did others.
What made you decide to join the Marines?
Well,
that was around Vietnam.
Oh, it was. Yeah, I went in thinking that I was going to, might go over there, even though I knew they were pulling out. They were still sending some people over there, and especially into the area. But in any case, whenever in between my junior and senior year, well, my sophomore and junior year and my junior and senior, I did carpenter work for the guy that lived across from me, a guy named Larry Pope. And I got out of high school and started doing carpenter work again. But the economy was in the pits, and Larry was the type of guy that, he'd make a lot of money and then he'd go fishing for a week. I knew I couldn't do that for a living, and and I said, I think I'll go in the Marine Corps and let them teach me something that I can do, and do carpenter work in the daytime and do something else at night, And I thought I wanted to be a policeman, so I signed up to be an MP. But whenever I got into boot camp, they said, with your scores, you'd do really good at this, but it's top secret. We can't tell you what it is, but everybody loves it. Well, I hated it, And I got out of the Marine Corps, and whenever my 3 years was up, I got out, and I went in at a deal where you didn't have to commit to 6 years. I know most people had either 6 years, some in active and some in reserves or something, but I was just in a odd situation right after they quit the draft, and they didn't make me go the full 6 years. So it's kind of strange that I only had to do 3.
They're probably trying to reduce the service.
Well, that was what they were doing. They were, reduction in force type of thing. But in any case, but I got out of the Marine Corps in November of '78, and I went down to City Hall to apply to be a policeman. And they said, well, we aren't accepting applications for policemen today, but we are for firemen. And I mean that quick. I said, let's see, people don't like policemen, call them names and all kinds of stuff. People like firemen. I can do that. And that was by the grace of God, because in retrospect and working closely with the police the way I have, over my career, I recognize that was definitely the grace of God. I wouldn't have liked to be a policeman.
Did you finish college by the time you joined the fire department?
No. I had, when I got out of high school, I started, I was taking night courses and stuff until I went in the Marine Corps. And, and it was tough because I was getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, going out and being on a job site at daylight, and then doing, going home for a little while, taking a nap and eating something, and then going to school at night. And I said, man, this is killing me. And little did I know, because after I got out of the Marine Corps, got married, then I went back to college and got my degree. And by then I was doing carpenter work on the side, working 56 hours a week at the fire station, 30 to 40 hours doing carpenter work, and taking a full load, in the 12 in the long semesters and 6 in both summer semesters. And so, and I'd come in and my wife would have my clothes laid out so I could go from the fire department to my, construction. And then I'd come home in the afternoons and she'd have my, my clothes ready for me to jump into to go to school. And she'd throw something in my hand as I went out the door. And when after church on Sunday, we'd go to a friend's house and she'd go socialize, and I'd lock myself in one of their rooms studying, and did that for 3.5 years, because I did have a few semesters there before I went in the Corps. But it was tough. But yeah, I like I said, I made straight A's because it was a gauge of how, if I was wasting or utilizing properly the time that I was having to spend away from my kids.
So you got your degree?
I got my degree.
What's it in?
I've got a degree in public administration. It's actually emergency administration. I was one of the first graduates up at North Texas, that graduated with emergency administration with a minor in business law.
Ooh. Now, in 1978, what kind of people were the fire department looking for then?
Well, Irving had gone to state civil service in 1975. In 1975 they went to state civil service. And so you basically, applied, and took the test, and whoever, came out number one, then they had the process. And unless they found some reason to boot you, then they had to hire you. So, I scored number one on the test by the grace of God, and they called me, about a month later and said, okay, we need you to come down and take the agility test, and I did, and passed that, and a couple of weeks later, I was at the fire station. So it was a quick ride.
What kind of training did you get to be a part of the fire station?
Well, back then, you had on-the-job training. And, I went to the fire. Well, the first thing I did is report to the admin building, which was at City Hall. And they took me down and got me uniforms, got me my firefighting gear, and then took me to one of the fire stations. And they said, there's the fire engine. When that tone goes off, you get on that fire engine, you know, and you do, whenever the engine stops, then you do exactly what that captain says. And so I did. And I rode a couple of shifts with the guy that was there as a fourth man. We rode 3 men to a piece of equipment back then, but, you know, for those first 2 shifts, they put me with another guy that had been working, you know, already. And then the 3rd shift, I was it, you know, and I just had to do what the captain said. Now, after they had hired a bunch of people, then we went through a rookie school. But that was actually about 5-6 months later, you know, before I started rookie school. And the first 8 hours of every shift, we would go to the training academy, and we learned hydraulics, and we learned you know, the medical, because firemen respond to medical calls as well, and we learned, you know, anything and everything. We learned it because firemen are really the last trade that does everything. I mean, you know, if you got an electric line down, who do you call? You call the fire department. If you're in a car wreck, who do you call? You call the fire department. You know, I mean, we do everything. It's kind of crazy.
Do you have paramedic training?
I did. I went to paramedic school in 1979 and got out in January of '80. You know, rode my last shift New Year's Eve, and then was a paramedic after that. I mean, you know, came back to Irving after that and got on the box. And in Irving, I'd gone to EMT school first, and I went to EMT school pretty quick. Now EMT school is part of rookie school. And nowadays, in fact, it was only about 2 classes after mine that Irving started having a formal class, and they wouldn't let them go to the fire stations until they had gone to rookie school. And most of the time they hold their own, but sometimes they would farm it out if another city was having one and we only had 1 or 2 people or something. But in any case, but yeah, the driver, you had to be to be on an ambulance, you had to be a driver, which is a promotion from a firefighter. And but after I went to EMT school, then I did ride out of class, which is where if the driver is off, then I would move up as a firefighter, and they would pay me, you know, that driver's pay, you know, for that day that I was working in that rank.
Have you ever been injured?
I was injured several times, you know. Yeah, I've got a bad back, bad knee, bad shoulder.
How did you get these?
Well,
doing what the captain told you to do.
That and being the captain as well, you know. Just a myriad of things. You know, I've been blown up. My back. My back lasted real well, and I never really had problems with it. I always tried to stay in shape, and I'm fat as a hog right now. But in 2001, I caught a virus around my heart, just an unknown etiology virus, and they put me on steroids for a year. I was on and off steroids for a year, and I gained all this stinking weight. I've never been able to lose it. You know, but before then, I mean, I did sit-ups galore, and I always felt if you had a good, strong core, that, you know, it'd protect your back. And I never had back problems, but then I gained that weight, so my sit-ups kind of went by the wayside. So that was 2001, resulting heart surgery to peel the pericardium off in 2008. You know, fun times. Yeah. But then in January of 2009, that apartment complex that used to be right there by the creek on 6th Street, yeah. They had vacated it. They were fixing to bulldoze it. We had an arsonist going in there and setting fires. And Engine 5, which I was assigned to, was first in. And we went in, and I had a firefighter on each side. Normally you'd sound the floor in front of you, make sure there's no holes. But like a dummy, I'm sitting there, and I've got a firefighter on each side of me, and I've got the thermal imaging camera, but I'm looking ahead of me instead of below me. And I figure since I've got one on each side that I'm good and don't need to sound the floor. I stepped in a hole. My right leg went in the hole. Whenever I went down, I twisted as I went down and stuff. Of course, got all my gear on. That's about 40 pounds or so by the time you figure your air pack and everything. And it's pitch black. You can't see your hand in front of your face. And, you know, those thermal imaging cameras that we got about the last third of my career, they were nice, you know. But in any case, from that point on, I had back problems. And I ended up having back surgery here just this past February. So February of 19, you know, ended up him putting a cage around the lower part of my back. And he said there were little chips in there from having taken a fall. Well, that was the only time I fell, you know. But the city said, oh, it's degenerative disc.
It is now.
It is now.